Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet.
Announced the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome, everybody, to this Monday edition of TNZ Talk. It is April 11th, 2016, and listening to that little bass riff from the Seinfeld makes me long for the ability to play the bass, which I just don't have time for. Anyway, good morning, everybody. I'm Tony Trupiano, the T and TNZ. Joining me in just a second will be Richard Zombeck, the Z in TNZ. But I do want to remind you, if you want to join us at any time, feel free to do that. 347-855-8118. That's 347-855-8118. And let's welcome Richard Zombeck back to the program after a really weird week last week where we were off a lot, and then I did a solo thing. Thank God for guests on Friday, and, well, here we are, back together again, the reunion tour, Z.
That's right, after a hiatus, it was kind of a screwy little week we had.
It was a screwy little week we had, and unfortunately I'm going to be off a couple days this week, but it is what it is. In the interim, we have plenty to discuss, but let me ask you, how was your weekend? I know your wife had been out of town, and she's back now, so there was the reunion sex, which I'm sure was amazing.
The reunion
and then,
what?
Of course, the sex.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say between the two of you. I just said, reunion sex is amazing, at least the way I remember it.
Yeah.
But, that is what it is. Sorry, didn't mean to make that uncomfortable for you. But anyway, here we are, another week. How was your weekend, by the way?
Weekend was good. The weekend, well, it was a weekend. I don't even know what weekends are these days.
Well, I can tell by the fact that you're constantly writing and posting and trying to be a good communicator, which you are. So I'm awfully proud of you, Richard. I'm back.
Oh, thanks, man.
No problem. On Friday's show, it was kind of nice to take a vacation a little bit from the madness of the campaign. And today, at least in the first half hour, we're going to take a little vacation from the madness of the presidential campaign. But there's another madness going on, and a conservative right-wing ideology that is forced upon the people of this great country. This idea that if you are transgendered, or for that matter, part of the LGBT community, but certainly transgendered, that you are A, a pedophile, B, dangerous, C, you don't go to the bathroom. When you go into the bathroom, you go in there to attack unsuspecting women and children, which doesn't make sense, because if you are a transgendered man, wouldn't you be going into it, well, anyway, to attack men? We never seem to mention that. I, of course, have spent, I'll be 23 years on the 16th of April doing radio. And I have spent probably 20 of those years advocating for the LGBTQ community. I think that I've enlightened a lot of people. I haven't necessarily won everyone over to my side, which is, of course, pro-LGBTQ. But I think I've flipped a few people who now have a better understanding of what equality and equity means. But this recent spate, Z, of GOP-sponsored hate legislation towards the LGBT community, in my opinion, has crossed a line.
Well, it's just weird, and it like everything else, it goes to show how uneducated and really ignorant people are, and cruel and vile and disgusting and heartless and just nasty. I mean, you and I were talking just before the show, and there was a post up on Facebook from Steven Van Zandt. Basically defending Bruce Springsteen's cancellation of the concert in North Carolina as a result of this. And I understand that, too. I mean, artists and performers and stuff. Actually, Bryan Adams announced that he wouldn't be playing either. And the comments on it were disgusting. Like, yeah, who wants to hear a has-been anyway? And, so you're all for pedophiles and gays, and you would let your own daughter in and with one of these predators, blah, blah, blah. And this is the kind of commentary. And, I've always found this interesting on Facebook, because it used to surprise me when people made comments like that on articles, right, on the web, because they were usually fake names, right? You'd have like Jitterbug554 saying, "Yeah, you don't know what the
right,
you don't know what the F you're doing." And now, since Facebook has cracked down on it being real people on Facebook, and more Facebook comments are integrated into articles because Facebook is so popular. I mean, even on our website, all the comments are integrated with Facebook, and I do that for a very particular reason. It's so that there are no, Jitterbug5543695 asterisks, blah, 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 making stupid comments, and you can track it down to a real person and go, hey, look, everyone, this is a real person, and he's a real idiot. That's still not the case on Twitter. But the level of discourse has toned down considerably. But what I'm surprised is that people are still willing to put hateful, disgusting comments on and attach their name to it. That kind of has me a little bit surprised recently, and seeing stuff like that and going, wow. It's like that. There was a girl who was she's a model, and she was getting these disgusting comments, and she decided to track down the guy's mothers, and send them copies of what they were sending her on Instagram and stuff. It was beautiful. And, that's much more possible now. I remember I took a screenshot of someone's comment on Facebook and posted it to Twitter, and they told me that I was violating their rights, and that I should get arrested for what I just did. And it's like, I'm sorry, it's a public forum. You're the one that decided to show the entire world that you're an idiot. Not my fault. But this kind of stuff, it's one thing if you tell an author or a writer of an article that they don't know what they're doing and that they're a moron and they're an idiot. As writers, we were kind of expected to get used to that and to just suck it up. But when, you're making these kind of comments and don't care that someone else is reading them or that it's hurting them or, what it can really do to a person, I don't know. It says a lot about our society that I'm not really too pleased with.
Well, let me, before we get to some audio, let me take this to a little bit different direction. I don't disagree with a word you said. My problem is those that don't take the time to support Steven Van Zandt or support, at least in the numbers that the detractors do, Bruce Springsteen or Bryan Adams, as if they're afraid by using their real name, whether they are gay, straight, bisexual, transgendered, questioning the reality of what the hate that's being spewed. And I find that a little bit disturbing, understanding why they don't do it. But like any social movement, Z, You have to stand up, as I do all the time. And listen, I've been accused of being gay for a lot of my adult life. Doesn't matter that I was married. Doesn't matter that I have 3 children. It doesn't matter that I'm not gay or transgendered or bisexual or questioning, although I might question from time to time. I've been accused because of my fervent support of the LGBTQ community for being gay. I could give a crap. I could literally care less. The world could think I'm gay. I don't care. But I know that's not everybody.
Yeah, no, oddly enough, I've gotten the same thing, and not necessarily for my support, just because I was always, a thin, well-dressed kid, and particularly when I lived in North Carolina, I had all my teeth, so it was automatically assumed that, whatever.
Well, you can wear orthodontics that make it look like you don't have, like, front teeth or something if it'll help. Anyway, Jessica Williams, who is a great contributor to The Daily Show, decided to take a look at transphobia in this country. Now, she met with a group of transgender people, and I did post the video to social media, so for those of you that would actually like to see the audio that we're about to play, feel free. This is rather long. It's a little over 8 minutes, but it is, Z, in my opinion, very well done.
Yeah, so let's move on.
Okay.
So, what is it that scares so many people about transgender communities? And what's it like to live as the focus of that fear? Jessica Williams finds out.
Iowa is most famous for its cornfields, butter sculptures, and butter sculptures of cornfields. Until last summer, when transgender woman Megan Taylor tried to check in to the Drury Inn in the city of Des Moines. We sat down with Taylor herself for an exclusive tell-all.
I could tell when I checked in to the hotel that it was.
Shh, I got this, real Megan Taylor. It was July 12th, 2015. You presented your ID to the hotel manager.
I have a reservation.
But she was on to you. Fearing for her life, she took immediate action.
I have somebody that's a little unusual that's checking into the hotel, and they're dressed as a woman, but it's a man's driver's license.
And that's when the cops came, and all hell broke loose. But let's rewind here. What triggered the cops to respond?
You pull out a gun, and then the cops come, and you're arrested?
And none of that happened.
What'd you pull out a knife?
No.
What'd you do, drugs?
Nothing of the sort.
Well, then why the hell were you arrested?
I got arrested because I was a black transgender woman.
Specifically, cops held her because she didn't have a prescription for her hormone pills. And this is 2016.
What were you doing in Iowa?
I was there going to a funeral.
You were there for a funeral?
Yeah.
And did you get to attend the funeral?
I didn't get to make the funeral at all.
How long were you in jail for?
I was in jail for 8 days.
I'm sorry.
It's terrible. Take your time.
Ugh, I thought it was tough being a black woman. But compared to a black transgender woman, I might as well be a white frat dude at a Dave Matthews concert.
Transgender women get arrested all the time, especially black transgender women, just by walking down the street or anything.
And by anything, she means literally anything. Because of discrimination and profiling, at least 47% of black trans people will have at some point in their lives been incarcerated. Let's underline, bold, and set fire to that graphic because it's 47%. You'd think there'd be laws to correct this. But instead, this year alone, state legislatures have introduced 175 anti-trans bills. Many make it legal to discriminate based solely on religious beliefs. And then you have these bathroom bills.
It would fine and imprison transgender people who use public restrooms that don't match the gender on their birth certificate.
That's what's really triggering this trans panic. Just listen to Colorado Representative and Elmer Fudd lookalike, Gordon Klingenschmidt.
Should we fear the transgender community?
Well, they not only want to be confused about their own identity, but they want the rest of us to be confused with them. Now they want the government to join them in that pretense. They're making us into liars.
Wow.
Okay, I met with these so-called liars to find out what their evil intentions are.
There's a notion that trans people are perpetrators in some way, that we're sneaking and trying to trick you for the purposes of having sex with you.
And that's not the case at all.
People just want to see male and female like it has to fit in one of those two boxes, and if it doesn't, it makes people uncomfortable. And
it's surely not a choice.
That's all you need to know.
Well, not according to Klingenschmidt, who thinks that we're all going to get attacked in the bathroom.
A man can go into a ladies' room and assault you and your little girl.
Especially in our most important bathrooms.
Next time, ladies, you go out to Olive Garden, watch out who's going to be in the bathroom.
There's no reported incidences of any trans person ever raping or assaulting anyone in any bathroom ever.
If anything, trans people are the ones getting assaulted.
These people are up against some bull. There must be some small way I can help them out.
Give me some offensive comments or questions, and I'll give you some good answers that you can use in your day-to-day life.
Why are your feet so small?
Oh, you think my feet are small?
You have
Wow. Woo. Okay. That's guns a-blazing on that question. I don't currently have a so...
How much?
How much for...
Sex.
Oh,
How do you have sex?
So your parents ashamed of you?
What's the gender marker on your ID?
When do you tell them that you're really a man?
no, when it's appropriate.
Do you have cadaver tits?
Don't tell me what that is.
What's your real name?
Yeah, I just want to know.
Yeah, what's your name?
Tell us.
Did you chop it off?
Do straight women date you? Or
How
gay
much does
women?
it cost?
Do you like to suck?
The transgender community is more oppressed than I could have ever imagined. So why does Gordon feel so threatened?
Have you ever been attacked by a transgender person? Is that why this is happening?
No.
Have you ever had a traumatic experience with a trans person?
I wouldn't call it traumatic. No, I
Devastating?
Yeah, no.
You haven't.
So why does he feel this way?
Dressing like a woman, and he's not a woman.
Wait a second. This guy's a preacher too? And he thinks what?
It's not just a psychological disorder, it's actually a demonic spirit.
Okay, so now they're possessed? Go on.
I would be comfortable talking about religious freedom, but I'd have to change into my alter ego if you're okay with that.
You have to change into your alter ego? Who are you, Lady Gaga? Go on ahead and change.
Okay, hold up. Is everybody seeing this? I am actually waiting for this man to transition so that he can feel more comfortable during our interview. Oh, and also, hey, heads up, I am not judging him for his personal choice. Until he took out his phone to judge others for their personal choices.
And Deuteronomy 22:5 says, a woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear woman's clothing, for the Lord your God detests anyone who does this.
I don't remember that part, but there is a part about shellfish or stoning people to death.
Getting tattoos.
But what about their sincerely held religious beliefs?
They can go in their hat because we have separation of church and state because we believe in our Constitution.
Nevertheless, these bathroom bills are being passed, and Gordon is doing everything he can to make it happen.
Get used to the idea of having your women and children share bathrooms with cross-dressing men who are going to expose themselves to you.
Do you, for whatever reason, associate being transgender with being a pervert?
I mean, that is perversion. It's people who label themselves as transgender for the purpose of getting that access to violate the rights of others.
Is it fair to say that because you're a priest that you're a pedophile?
Well, of course not.
Why is it of course not? Why?
Because some people are criminals and some people are not criminals.
Could you take that logic and apply that to the transgender community?
They're apples and oranges.
By apples and oranges, do you mean apples and apples?
Unfortunately, a lot of people think like Gordon. So how can we end this transphobic epidemic?
Hopefully they can understand that we are striving towards becoming a more authentic version of ourselves after a lot of soul searching and a lot of thought and sometimes a lot of trauma and tragedy.
Passing these bills is absolutely going to just add fuel to the fire and ignite trans panic. Trans panic, panic, panic.
Coming soon. They've existed since the beginning of time. They are not who people think they are.
Girl, you know we need to elevate that leg.
They come out at night.
Stop, no!
Or during the day, depending on their schedule.
You forgot your hat.
They have an appetite when they're hungry.
You're really gonna love this salad.
This summer, get ready for the most boring movie ever, where transgender people cause trans panic.
Lights went out again.
Even though they're just like the rest of us.
What else is on Netflix?
Yeah, just like us.
And there we go. You know, Z, The last part of that was actually pretty damn funny, especially if you watch the video. But most of it is really quite sad. And the questions that they were machine gunning at her, at Jessica, are very common questions if you are transgendered. On top of having a regular segment on the show on transgender issues with my dear friend Amy Hunter, who we're hoping to have on this week, there was and is a local mom by the name of Roz Keith, whose son is transgendered, and she became an accomplice and an activist and an advocate for his transition. He's 14 years old now, and he came to her when he was 12 and said, I know you put me in dresses and give me dolls. I want pants and I want G.I. Joes. And she has been an exceptional advocate. In fact, she just invited me to a event on Wednesday evening where a couple doctors will be there to talk about the transgender issues and transphobia and how we can help people in that community. Can you imagine being asked, did you cut it off?
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Did you have the surgery? What's your real name?
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. I particularly like the comment
kind of
from...
shocking. I like disgusting.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you know, I like one of the...
I can barely hear you, Z. I don't know why that is, but I can barely hear you.
One of the comments from that they want to be confused. You know,
because everybody does.
They want to be confused, and they want to confuse the rest of us. I mean,
absolutely.
That just, yeah.
I just want you to know that while that was playing, my disappointingly for you and for me, my phone rang, and of course it was off. But I can't really rub your face in it because we were playing audio and I had my microphone off. I'm just teasing. That's a private thing, kind of private thing between Z and I. Anyway, I'm hoping that we can have Amy Hunter on later this week. And she's a transgendered woman, an amazing activist, advocate, and expert on transgender issues. Someone I know, Z, you will like a great deal. And so hopefully we'll have her on. And in the meantime, I really want to have a discussion about the Boston Globe. But I'd like you to lead that discussion because you actually live in Massachusetts and was able to go out and physically get a copy of the Sunday paper.
Actually, I got the last two that were there. I picked up my wife at the airport, and we were talking about it, and she said, you know, oh, did you get a copy of it? And of course, I hadn't. I don't know why I don't think of these things, but so I went out and I got the last two Boston Globes that were in the store that up the street from my house. So what the Boston Globe did over the weekend in the Sunday Globe is their front page had basically they wrote a bunch of articles about what would happen if Donald Trump were president. And it wasn't written in a way of like, this is what will happen. It was written in a way that Donald Trump was already president. And the front page has headlines like this. President Trump calls for tripling of ICE force. Riots continue. The large front page headline up there is deportations to begin. Market sinks as trade war looms. Curfew extended in multiple cities. U.S. soldiers refuse orders to kill ISIS families. New libel law targets absolute scum in press. Trump on Nobel Prize shortlist. I mean, and they went in depth and wrote these articles. And one is markets sink as trade war looms. And it wasn't like they did like Onion headlines, right? Is they they scanned through speeches and documentation and things that Trump has said and things that he's suggested, and then they researched what those suggestions and ideas of Trump's would do, not only to this country and to people in this country, but to the global economy. And as we've mentioned before, The Economist has Donald Trump's presidency as one of the top 10 global risks, up there with jihadi terrorism. And people, what's funny is when you mention stuff like this to people, they go, oh yeah, that's just a big liberal, a con job, and it's liberal scare tactics and all of that. But these are economists and sociologists and professionals that are looking at this and speculating on what could happen if some of the things that Donald Trump is suggesting and what it would do globally, not only to our position in the globe and our reputation, but to the global economy, to peace, to alliances that have been formed over decades and some even centuries, and what it would mean if we actually followed through with some of the stuff that Trump is suggesting. And the future does not look bright in a Donald Trump presidency. I'll tell you that. I mean, they have the Dow going from, on March 3rd, 16,000 to by March 24th down to under 10,000, 9,912 within, 3 weeks. $1.4 trillion worth of assets disappearing because of his trade war ideas. And that's in the stock section. So this was just a beautifully done. It could have. There were some people talking on the Sunday shows that very funny, and it should have been an April Fool's joke. And I disagree. I think putting it up on April 1st would have taken away from the seriousness and the gravity of the potential issues that could come up should Donald Trump's ideas be made real.
No question that's true. We actually have some audio to support the Boston Globe front page, quote unquote, front page story. Why don't we take a listen to that?
Yeah, this is actually one of the editors from the Boston Globe that was instrumental in putting this quote unquote opinion future speculative piece together. So let's listen to that.
We listened to Donald Trump's speeches, we scoured his website, we read his position papers, we considered who his advisors are, and we did what the Globe does best. We reported it out and put it on the front page for our readers to see. This was an exercise in taking Donald Trump at his word and laying out for the American people his vision. We wanted voters who are still considering candidates to go into those voting booths with a true sense of the candidate that they're selecting. I'd love to share a little bit about what these stories are. The first is on immigration. What does it look like when your neighbor is hauled from his house, put on buses, and sent to deportation camp? What does it look like when 11 million people suddenly disappear from our daily lives? The second is on trade tariffs. What happens when Americans go to the grocery store, go to the gas pump, try to buy clothes for their kids, and find prices that are 4, 5, 6 times what they were only weeks before? That's what happens when Donald Trump launches a trade war with China and Mexico. So what did we hope to accomplish with this? We want the Republican Party, as they head to their convention this summer, asking themselves tough questions. Do they share the vision for America that Donald Trump has? Are they willing to settle for a candidate almost as extreme in Ted Cruz? We want the Republican Party to figure out how to bring honor back to politics in America. And we want to hear from you.
And there it is.
And of course, Donald Trump responded by what a piece of crap the Boston Globe was, and that they're not worth the paper they're printed on.
They were sold for $1, I think he said.
Yada, yada.
Yeah, I mean, he really, he went on like a little nutbag extravaganza with that. I mean, he just went off. And, here's the thing, Tony, right, is we've got people that have not been paid attention to, have been disenfranchised, have been ignored, have been uneducated, and see the problem in this country as foreigners and our jobs going to other countries, which to a certain degree, the jobs going to other countries is fairly true. But, you know, there are, of course, numerous reasons behind that. And then you have a blowhard that comes up and goes, all I got to do is build a wall and get rid of all the Muslims and we'll be back in action. And people go, woohoo. And they never dig deeply into what all of these ideas and suggestions, let's call them, could possibly lead to. And the Boston Globe did that. This is what it looks like when we have curfews in this country. This is what it looks like when we're deporting millions of people from this country. This is what happens when we cut off trade with other countries. You know, like she said in that clip, wake up the next day and you're paying 3 to 4 times the amount of what you were paying for before. I mean, it's the same kind of argument that you have and that I have with people that says, yeah, all of our shit is made in China. It's like, well, so let's make it here and you'll pay, you know, $150 for a pair of jeans. Right?
You know, yeah, absolutely. And when we take a look at, you know, it's interesting. There, as you know, there have been some members of the media that have equated Donald Trump's journey to Bernie Sanders' journey. One of the quote-unquote commonalities is that they both joined a party that they never really belonged to. That would be more true, of course, would be completely true for Donald Trump, but not necessarily for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders votes with Democrats somewhere in the 90-something percentile, so I'm not going to play that game. But with that said, Donald Trump chooses to be a Republican candidate. And you and I, again, were talking before the show, and we were talking about people like Rick Scott and Scott Walker and the governor of Maine, whose name escapes me, and Rick Snyder, the governor of Michigan. These are all Republican governors. Thank you. And, you know, Donald Trump, in some ways, fits right into that mold, don't you think?
Yeah.
Didn't need to twist your arm on that one.
Right.
I was
wrong, actually. LaPierre is the head of the NRA. LePage is the governor of Maine.
LePage, yes.
And this
guy is completely crazy.
He's a walking piece of crap, is what he is.
Yeah, he is absolutely crazy. In fact, I posted a story last week where there was a special election to replace a Democratic senator in their state house. And a Democrat was elected. It didn't change the balance of the legislature. Did nothing to change the balance of the legislature. But he had a wild hair up his ass the morning that she was supposed to be sworn into office. And when her and her family showed up, and I'm sure you're familiar with the story, Z, when they showed up for her to take the oath of office at 10 minutes to 9 on that morning, he canceled it because he was pissed off at the Democrats in the Senate and wasn't going to give her the right to be sworn in. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Duly elected, democratically elected.
But this is what they do, right? I mean, look at the voter suppression and stuff. And then you have I don't even remember what state he is, but you have an elected official, a Republican, saying, "Well, yeah, I know. I think these new voter rules are gonna help with the Hillary vote and not getting her enough," and saying it out loud, right? Is that, you know, we have these new voter. I think it was Wisconsin. We have these new voter laws because it'll make it more difficult for people to vote for Hillary Clinton. And, you know, right during a TV interview with a microphone in his face and everything. I want to go back to the trade stuff just for a minute, because here's the thing, right, is that you look at Donald Trump supporters who are, he's even said it, right? I'm really popular with the uneducated. We love the uneducated, right? I mean, that's almost a direct quote from Donald Trump, the poorly educated or uneducated or whatever. The poorly educated, that's what he said. We love the poorly educated. And then on the other side of this, you have Bernie Sanders, who is looking, for free college. I mean, not free, nothing's free, right? But, affordable college education, or even, free 2 years or free 4 years paid for by taxpayers, which is what a lot of other countries in the civilized world do. You can go to France or Cuba, for that matter, and get a degree that you want without paying a penny. And the argument in this country is that we have cornered the market on intellectual goods, right? That we're no longer this market. And the argument from the corporations too, and this is understandable, right? The people that look at the economy globally will say, but we're raising the standard of living in the Philippines or in China or in India. We're bringing people up. We're giving them a living, and we're moving all of these populations out of abject poverty. And that globally, they feel like they're doing good in the world because of that. Now, you can argue whether or not that's self-serving or patting themselves on the back or whatever, but there's also an argument for that. And then on the other side, you have the argument that the United States is pretty much the market for intellectual goods and services and figuring this stuff out and technology and all of that. And then you have a faction of the left that says, look, we've offered free education up to the 12th grade. Why not tack another 4 years onto that and now make it, public education for 16 years or 14 years or whatever, but give people in this country the ability to benefit from a higher education, which maintains the country as still an intellectual leader and still a leader in innovation and things like that. And yet you have a whole other part of the party that says, listen, we can't compete globally with manufacturing, so you're all going to have to F yourselves when it comes to jobs, because we're going to send them overseas because you're not going to pay $150 for a pair of socks. But we're also not going to educate our population because that just means that people want free stuff. So really, I mean, they're just squashing the middle class and the blue collar workers at a level that is just, to me, is incomprehensible.
Well, again, it's hard for me to disagree, not that I would, with anything that you just had to say. So, here we go. We've got this crazy dynamic. Let's go back to, because I really want to get to this audio. Rick Scott is the governor of Florida. They know how to pick him there. There's no question about that. There are two pieces of audio. Let's go with the first one, which is Rick Scott at Starbucks. Z.
Okay, there are actually three pieces of audio, but yeah, This is the one that was. This was recorded from a third party, just a normal, regular person in a Starbucks. This was recorded from purportedly their phone. We'll just, for the sake of argument, we'll say that. But this is what happened in a Starbucks in Florida when Rick Scott walked into it.
We listened to Donald Trump's speeches. We scoured his website. We read his position papers. We considered...
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll try that again.
We're good.
You cut Medicaid, so I couldn't get Obamacare. You're an You don't care about working people. I'm not talking to you. You don't care about working people. You should be ashamed to show your face around here. We got 1 million jobs. 1 million jobs? Great. Who here has a great job? You should. Or is looking forward to finishing school? You really feel like you have a job coming up?
So what was beeped out on that was a woman in the coffee shop calling Rick Scott an a-hole. And there was one part of the clip that I didn't get for some reason, but at the very end there are like 3 or 4 people that are like cheering for her, and saying, right on, good for you, excellent. So Rick Scott walks into this Starbucks to get a cup of coffee, and one of his constituents attacks him for being Rick Scott, for not expanding Medicare in the state, for actually not creating these, great jobs for everyone. And just like every other Republican, the jobs that are created are low paying, low wage, lousy, miserable jobs that you can't live on.
Did you get the impression she was a little angry?
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit angry. Well, Rick Scott just couldn't leave well enough alone, could he? He had to respond, so I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so a couple days after this video went pretty much viral, Rick Scott, I guess, had to show how thin-skinned he is and put an ad, well, I guess it's an ad, put a very professionally done video up on his YouTube channel. And here's the audio from that.
You may have seen this video of a terribly rude woman at a coffee shop cursing and screaming at Governor Scott.
You're an You don't care about working people. A million jobs, great. Who here has a great job?
Well, that woman clearly has a problem. And it turns out that she's a former government official who refused to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and calls herself an anarchist. But never mind about that. Let's look at the substance of her question about who around here has a job. I'm glad you asked. She was at Starbucks in Gainesville. So let's take a look at who around her has a job. Since Rick Scott became governor, 9,300 new jobs have been added, all in this area. In fact, unemployment here was cut in half.
A million jobs, great. Who here has a great job?
Well, almost everybody, except those who are sitting around coffee shops, demanding public assistance, surfing the internet, and cursing at customers who come in.
Yeah, great, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was there was a segment on Fox a few years back with what's his name, Stuart Varney, is that his name, the British guy? That pompous ass. And they were talking. It was about poverty in America, and he ran down a list of really condescending remarks saying, well, and look, 80% of these people have a cell phone. That's not poor. 90% of them have refrigerators and microwaves. I mean, this is what they thought was a way of showing that poverty doesn't exist in this country, right? Because we're all supposed to be like the Dust Bowl, living with holes in our shoes and dirt floors. And that's really what poor is, right? Is that, poverty in America doesn't exist because people have refrigerators, which people have had for the last, I don't know, few decades at least. That it's pretty much standard.
Let's call it 5 decades, but maybe 6, maybe 7. But hell, what am I? Just an average historian.
I mean, should you really have to prove that you're poor by lugging up, giant chunks of ice to keep your food from rotting? I mean, it was, and this, she's just hanging around in a coffee shop. And that's all she's doing, and she's going to complain about not having a job. Well, of course she's not going to have a job. She's a loser. I mean, this is really, for an elected official to react in this way, really is disgusting. I mean, I think it's one thing to put up an ad or a response to say, hey, look, a lot of you might have seen this attack. Here are some figures and some numbers that I can show you of what I've been doing, of how I've been doing my job, of how I've been trying to improve things. No, instead, he comes out with this juvenile, bashing a constituent and making her look like she's unreasonable and rude when, in fact, this really could have been handled much, much differently.
Let me suggest that if we're going to waterboard people, we start with people like Rick Scott and Rick Snyder and Scott Walker, just to see if it actually works. Like, ask them this question: why are you so freaking stupid?
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
Right.
We've got 15 minutes left, and I want to spend a little time on Donald Trump so that we can transition to Paul Ryan. There's a real important point I want to make here. But let's start with President Obama. He sat down with Chris Wallace, and the interview aired on Fox News Sunday. And he was asked about the rise of Donald Trump, and his response was really quite interesting. It's a rather long segment, but again, well worth listening to.
Okay, let me get to that. It is a little long, so here we go.
It's treated differently when it comes to the Justice Department because nobody is above the law.
Even if she ends up as the Democratic nominee.
How many times do I have to say it, Chris? Guaranteed.
Finally, we've seen in this campaign, I think both among some Trump voters and among some Sanders voters, anger about Washington, about Wall Street. Do you feel any personal responsibility that 8 years after you came into office, there are millions of people out there who still feel cut out from the decisions that affect their lives?
Well, there's no doubt that I feel frustrated about it. My whole operating assumption in terms of our democracy is the more people are involved, the more they know, the more they're involved, the more responsive our government is.
So why are all these people, Democrats and Republicans?
I think it comes out of a couple things, Chris. Number one, we're still shell-shocked from what happened in 2007, 2008. We've now had more than 6 years straight of job growth and cut the unemployment rate down to 5%. But people lost homes, lost jobs, lost life savings, and they still don't fully know how that happened and was the system fixed in a way they can have confidence in.
How couldn't you fix that in 8 years?
Well, actually, we've done a better job than I think most people give us credit for.
I don't mean fix the system. I mean fix the perception.
Well, the perception is going to be changing over time as people see results, as they get more confident. But, and this is the big but, nobody's going to be 100% satisfied in a democracy like ours with every outcome. And I think the danger, both among Republicans and among Democrats, who increasingly just listen to each other, they just listen to people who already agree with them. Republicans, they have their own TV stations, their own radios.
Say Fox News.
They've got their own publications, their own blogs. Democrats, same thing. Increasingly what happens is we don't hear each other. And so what happens then is when Republicans promise to repeal Obamacare and it doesn't get repealed, they're outraged. Well, it must be because Republicans were corrupt or unresponsive or big money got involved. If Democrats get frustrated, they say, well, why didn't we have a public option in our health care system or have a single-payer system? Well, it turns out that 85% of people get health care through their jobs. They're pretty satisfied with it. They don't want big change on that. That's why it didn't happen. It wasn't necessarily because there was some corruption or venality or that people were unresponsive to democracy. People disagree. I want occasionally people to step back and take a look. America's got the best cards. We are the envy of the world. We have the most powerful military on earth by a mile. Our economy right now is stronger than any other advanced economy. We have the best workers. We have the best universities. We are the most innovative. We have the most advanced scientific community. We have an incredibly diverse and talented population. This can be our century, just like the 20th century was, as long as we don't tear each other apart because our politics values sensationalism or conflict over cooperation, and we don't have the ability to compromise. And if we get that part right, nobody can stop us.
Mr. President, thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Chris.
I would have loved if he had said we have the most advanced scientific community that none of the Republicans or Fox News want to listen to.
Which is true. And I mean, he did make a dig at Fox News by saying that they have their own television and radio stations. And he said, and then he added, so do the Democrats. And I'm assuming he meant MSNBC, which has become much more centrist since they went all white. But we'll save that conversation for another time. But speaking, well, I'm just saying, listen, I love, I love the evening programming. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of Chris Hayes. I'm just not. But certainly, how do you not love Rachel Maddow? How do you not love Lawrence O'Donnell? They're so freaking intelligent.
Well, but I
learned so much from them.
I got to tell you, I've been liking Chris Hayes a lot more recently because he's played a couple clips and interviewed a couple people, and there are times when there's a pause in what he's saying, and he just goes, "Yeah." Because what the other person is saying is so ludicrous that he can't even wrap his thoughts around it. And what was interesting was over the weekend, they had Chuck Todd had Glenn Beck on, right? And Glenn Beck is going on and on about how we can't have Trump and it's going to be the end of the world and a disaster. And then they had Joy, what the hell's her name?
Joy Reid.
Joy Reid on the show as well. And I'm really kind of saddened that
who's a black woman, by the way. Who's a black woman. That
they got rid of her show because she was really good. I could do without Al Sharpton every night at 6:00. But
he's not on every night anymore.
He's on Sundays now.
Just Sunday morning.
Yeah.
They buried that black dude, too.
He can't seem to read a teleprompter, dude. I mean, I'll never forget the time he was talking about the Super Bowl and he was going, and the Patriots. My wife and I still laugh about that. And it was the Patriots.
You mean it's not the Patriots? It's the Patriots?
No.
What the hell was I thinking?
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a really smart guy, but he should not be in front of a camera reading a teleprompter.
He's obviously not a football fan. Listen,
the Patriots.
Not that I don't enjoy listening to you wax, but let's get to the Glenn Beck audio because that's going to lead me to where I wanted to go with Paul Ryan.
Okay, here's the Glenn Beck audio. Hopefully,
founder of Blaze.com. It's a conservative website and TV network, and he's also endorsed Ted Cruz, by the way. Mr. Beck, welcome to Meet the Press.
How are you, Jeff?
I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Let me start with this concern. We've heard it from many people that are Cruz supporters and that are Trump supporters over the airwaves who are concerned that somehow the party establishment may deny both of them. What would happen, do you think, what would your listeners how would they react?
I think it would be the end of the GOP. I don't think it's going to happen. 538.com just said that Ted Cruz has a 61% chance of winning California. Mm-hmm. Ted Cruz has won the last 10 in a row with Utah and North Dakota and Wisconsin and Colorado. And I mean, I just don't see it happening.
So you think if Paul Ryan is somehow plucked as the Republican nominee, that it would be the end of the GOP?
I think it would be very bad. I do. I think it would be very bad. You can't disenfranchise people. I mean, we've all gone out. We've been passionate about it. We've all been going back and forth and voted on the people. I mean, I really think it has to be one of the two front runners. But I just think people would feel very betrayed, and that's why, quite honestly, that's why people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are doing well, is because people feel very, very disenfranchised and they're angry, and that's something we don't want to add fuel to. You know, when Roger Stone was calling and saying that he was going to put out the hotel room numbers and encourage people to go to the delegates' hotel rooms and called for the days of rage, which we all remember 1968, that's really not a good thing. We don't want to play into the anger and the hatred and vitriol. We're in this together. Martin Luther King said, we're either going to live like brothers together, or we're going to perish together like fools.
So before we get into the wild speculation about Paul Ryan, I just want to mention we should live like brothers. We all need to be in this together. Coming from a guy who stood on a stage and said Obama has it out for white people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is a guy that has spread more hate and vitriol. And now he's saying, hey, listen, we need to come together as a country and stand together. Oh, and by the way, Obama hates white people.
Yeah. Well, he also said that this is Trump and Sanders are a response to hate and vitriol, and we need to stamp that down. We need to temper it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start by leading by example?
Well,
very quickly.
I will say this.
Now, we only got a few minutes left, so make it fast.
I will say this: is he has come out and said that he admits to being part of the problem at some point. He has done that. So,
well, he is.
Appreciate
his honesty.
I'm not defending him, but
I didn't think you were, Z. I really didn't think you were. All right. Last but not least, Paul Ryan released a video that many in the media are calling a campaign ad. Let's listen and let people decide for themselves.
What really bothers me the most of politics these days is this notion of identity politics, that we're going to win an election by dividing people, rather than inspiring people on our common humanity and our common ideals and our common culture, on the things that should unify us. We all want to be prosperous. We all want to be healthy. We want everybody to succeed. We want people to reach their potential in their lives. Now, liberals and conservatives are going to disagree with one another on that. No problem. That's what this is all about. So let's have a battle of ideas. Let's have a contest of whose ideas are better and why our ideas are better.
I'm all choked up.
All right. Was that a campaign ad? We've only got a minute, and I've got a programming note. So, was that a campaign ad, Z?
I'm too choked up to talk about it. It hit me.
Oh, stop it!
It hit me so hard. I don't know what to say. That was so beautiful.
Yes or no? Was it a campaign ad?
I can see why people would think it was, but I'm going to, for the sake of argument, say no.
And I'm, for the sake of reality, going to say yes. And we'll have to talk about that more on Wednesday. We will be off tomorrow, unless you're going to do the show by yourself, are you?
No.
Okay, we'll be off tomorrow and back on Wednesday. Thursday, my dear friend, transgendered woman and the trans advocacy coordinator for the ACLU of Michigan, will be joining us at 10:15 to talk about the pro-hate, anti-LGBTQ legislation that's sweeping the South right now. So we'll get it from a great authority. In the meantime, Z, for those that want more information, plus want to donate money to TNZ Talk, how would they do that?
They can. Before that, you got this all booked while we were on the show. That's impressive. You can multitask. That's wow.
Well, you know what? I've learned from the best, Professor.
That was even news for me that we were having on.
Professor,
on
I've
Thursday.
Learned from the best. That would be you.
On Thursday. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so if you want to find out about us, and also don't forget, we do need your support, both financially and morally. Morally meaning you can go to iTunes and rate us and everything like that. You can find us on the interwebs at tnztalk.com, and there's a support page. There's a link right there that'll take you to our support page that'll show you our Patreon page. It is Patreon, not Patreon. It's Patreon, as Al Sharpton says, the Patriots. And all the links to our Facebook, Twitter accounts, Tumblr, and everything, our archives are up there. And everything you need to know about Tony Tripiano and Richard Zombeck, but we're afraid to ask.
Including, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, in the meantime, everybody have a great Monday. We'll be back on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We are just out of time for today. I want to thank Ron Spikes, Rihanna, everybody at Blog Talk USA. You're going to find them at blogtalkusa.com. I'm Tony Tripiano with Richard Zombeck, and as always, we ask that you be well.
Oh yeah, can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.